Let's take a journey back to when she was conceived. Come on. Knowing the story was based at the turn of the century, George only had to use his childhood memories to first envision his machine. His boyish love for sledding. To slide down a snowy hill with a cold wind against his face. That made him realize he needed a sled-like machine to slide through time. So when his crew brought in this first design of the time machine, George turned it down. This wasn't a sled. It was more like an electric chair. Not the positive image he wanted to project. But something did catch his eye. Something he liked. Behind the machine, twirling, spinning, propelling it into the future, a dish. The first important link. George was into every little detail. I mean, even the design on the dish and these little knobs and ridges. There are 365 of them. 365 days in a year. Makes sense, doesn't it? Now, George wanted to have it spin in both directions. Clockwise for the future and counterclockwise for the past. But it was a very fragile part of the machine, and with his limited budget, that would prove too costly. Now, George knew he wanted a special seat for his machine. It had to stay true to the era. So the crew came up with an old-fashioned barber chair because its headrest looked like a pilot's seat. But the pedestal, that wouldn't do. So they took that off and replaced it with legs and a wooden design on its side, giving it a Victorian look, as if the time traveler had carved it himself. Staying true to H.G. Wells's novel, George surrounded it with brass railings. His sled was beginning to take shape. But unlike a boy pushing his sled down a hill, George needed something believable to give his machine power. I suppose he could have used something relating to nuclear power, like uranium, since science fiction movies at that time dealt with atomic power and bombs. But for George, atomic power and bombs would never do. So, it was back to Wells's novel, and something modern science was researching. Crystals. That was it. A clean source of power. A positive source. This was the last piece he needed to have a believable, rococo, centuries-enduring time machine. You did good, George.